Time for part 2. So we've already talked about window sets and the idea of individualized scaling. I also want to mention that there are a couple of things that window sets does not remember. One of those things is the size of the movie window. It would be really nice if the movie window could be a different size in a different project. You could make it a different size and then go back to a window set, and then it would revert to the window set's size. Also, the jumbo counter does not revert like it should. And that would be great because I love seeing that jumbo counter. And my LG monitor is also connected to a monitor in the performance room, which here is where I'm sitting right now. And that is really great because the talent can see the jumbo numbers, which is fantastic. So speaking of the jumbo display, here's another thing I'd like to see. Meter changes in the jumbo display. So there's currently, you can get markers in there, but you can't get meters in there. And markers you want to save for like verse 1, verse 2. But what if we could get meter changes in there? That would be fantastic. And actually, some way to even say coming up. You know, even sometimes you're improvising and you want to know what meter you're in if it's a multi-metric piece that you're improvising to. Okay, here's another thing I'd really like to see. Now, I'm a fan of the way the Mac does what they call the status bar. Now, the status bar is down here. And right now it says 1 of 78 selected, and then it gives you the amount of storage you have left. That's a pitifully low amount of storage, by the way. Please don't berate me. And you can change that by going into the View menu here. And if you look, you will see there is a hide status bar there, and now I've hidden it. I never want that status bar hidden. It's actually hidden by default in later operating systems, but I love it. I always want it. Now, if I select these, then I see there's 20 of 78 selected. I love that. Why couldn't we do that in DP? So just have it down here somewhere, or over here, whatever works for you programmers. We love you. Just have a, so that I know it says 6 of 9 or 10 or however many this is selected. That would be fantastic. Here's something that I've talked to a number of DP users about, and that is when you're using temporary groups to have something to show that the status of temporary groups is on. Here I have 2 tracks, and the 2 tracks have volumes in them, right? Now, if I want to group those together, I can double tap the W key, and anything in this window will now move together. So if I grab that, you can see how now I'm writing volume on both of these groups. I single tap the W key, then suddenly I'm only using 1 track, right? The only problem with this, I have no visual indicator that these temporary groups are enabled or disabled. Now, you're going to assume they're disabled because that's the default, right? But when they're enabled, we should have something that shows that to us. So I'm thinking back to Mackie and their Rude Solo light. Do you remember that? It's a light, it's an LED on the Mackie mixers, the old Mackie mixers. And most of the LEDs were kind of small when you press the mute button on one of the tracks or something like that. But in the control room section, there was this larger light that flashed, and it said Rude Solo under it. And that was really cool. I think we kind of need something like that for this, so that we know, we get a Rude group light, let's say, something like that. It should be rude, something that's flashing. And this is something that we'll get into later in the video. I would like to see more visual indications when something is not in its default mode. Here's another idea. What about dynamic font sizes? So, in other words, here is the markers window. If I go here, it's going to show me that I am in B. If I go here, it's going to show me I'm in A. What if this whole line were bolded? And then when it moved here, this whole line were bolded so that you could see at a glance where you were in a way that this little old-fashioned thing, or it could even be a red font, something like that. Copy mix to Q. Now there is a way to do this. And the way to do this is first to have all automation in, say, the mixer. What you would do is you would come in here to reassign continuous data, and you would say take audio volume, which happens to be selected. That's very smart. And you'd move it to effect automation, maybe the third internal send level, and then you would apply it. And then it would reassign that to the third internal send level, which would give you what you need to get a headphone mix out, for example. But how cool would it be if you had the same view I was suggesting earlier? So we go Option, Fader Meter. You go up here, and you'd hold this here. In addition to flip faders and then pans and sends, there would also be Copy Mix to Q. And then you would be able to copy the mix to the sends. Now the next one would be to repeat MIDI notes when you're in audible mode, which is right here, as you know, and you're adjusting velocity. Pro Tools does this. And of course, this could be a preference. And so then when you're moving it up, you hear the note repeated from time to time. And the cool thing about that is that samples have more to velocity than volume, right? Of course, we all know that. So it's more strident on the string, or it's when you hit the head, you hear more of the stick, or whatever it is. Velocity changes a bunch of different attributes in the sound of a note. So this is a great way to be able to adjust this and to hear what adjustment you're making. Here's another one. I'd like to be able to exclude certain fields from the markers list. Here's the markers list. Now, a lot of times, and I have a video coming up on this, I will send to a client. They'll come in, they'll do an hour's worth of a session, and we'll stop and start and do different takes of the same thing, and maybe it's a solo pianist or something like that. And I keep markers. Piece 1, take 1. Piece 1, take 2. Piece 1, take 3. And so when I'm finished, I have a list of the pieces. And so that person can then go through and say what pieces, what take they liked, what measures they liked from what take, and also the time. I just go in and I change the time, Option Command T if you're curious, to real time. And then I can see the real time column. I don't really need to tell that person about the milliseconds or about the frames. So I would like to be able to exclude this last column. I would also like to be able to exclude find, wait, hit before range, hit after range, comment. That would be great. And of course, you can't do that here. If you look in the tracks window, all you need to do is double click and you can leave out almost anything you want. You don't want to move track? Fine, take it out. The color? Fine, you can take it out. So I would love to be able to do that with the markers. Next is project notes. So project notes, I love this. I keep so many different things in project notes. I keep hourly rates. I keep notes about what we need to do. When somebody sends me an email and says, use track 2 or use take 5 of the guitar solo or whatever, I just copy it out of the email. I put it right in here, and so I have everything in the project. It's fantastic. Now, one problem. Not all things you would expect work in the project notes. Of course, I know I have this fake Latin in here, and that's weird. But for example, there's no way to change the fonts here. You can see bold, italic, underline, all that sort of stuff. It would be very nice to change the font size for certain things, to have headings. Now, one thing that you can do, I don't know if you know this, but Command right arrow will take you to the end of a line. Command left arrow is supposed to take you to the beginning. It doesn't do it. The other thing is Option left arrow is supposed to take you word by word, and Option right arrow takes you word by word. So they have everything set up except for Command left arrow. It's a little messy. So if we could get those things in there, it would be fantastic. The other thing is undo. Let's try something here. I'll go here. It's gone. Undo? No, sir. Undo is working. You'll see it up here in the edit menu, but it doesn't work in the currently selected environment. And so it would really be nice to have some undo, because I can't get that back now. I don't know what to do about it. Next thing that I would love, oh man, I'm so excited even thinking about it, is keyboard commands for certain things in operations windows. I don't know what they're called here, but they're called operations in Pro Tools. So if I go here to the region menu and I pick quantize. Quantize gives you a lot of very cool options. For one thing, you can do a key command to do 16th notes, tuplets in the time 2 or 3, whatever you want to do. But I would just like a way to go between these, a key command. For example, the left and right arrows would be great. That would make my life a lot easier, because I'm going through a lot of times and I want to quantize things. I just want to go to the 16th note. I just want to go to the quarter note. These things like sensitivity, strength, and randomize, you can tab through them, but you don't get to tab through the grid part. So I would love that. There are a couple of other windows like this as well. Quick Scribe. Now I know a lot of work has been done on Quick Scribe lately. Here's what I'd like to see. Side-by-side pages. That would be so nice. It's been so long. When you look at real music, the pages are side by side. I've asked about this a lot. Everybody says you can't do it. If you can, please let me know. I'll be your friend. Measure 123 right here. If I want to see 123 and 124, let's say they're a group, there's really no way to do it, because boom. Now I'm on 124, 123 is nowhere to be found. So if that were a couplet, I wouldn't be able to deal with that as a single unit. I would really love to be able to do that. Next one, pin conductor track. Now this would be especially good in tracks, but maybe also in the sequence. Even to have a group of tracks pinned. So you could pin the conductor track, master fader, some auxes, whatever. They could be in a folder. And so when you had a large project with a lot of different tracks and you started scrolling through those tracks, you would always be able to see the conductor track or an aux track or whatever you pinned. Next thing, edit soundbite in place. Now, I'm a big fan of keyboard commands, and I know that if I'm looking at the soundbite, if I want to edit volume in place, Option V, and I'm there. So edit a little volume, edit track mute in place, Option U. We need an edit soundbite in place, because you can't get back to the soundbite except by doing this. I realize you can't have edit everything in place, but it would really be nice to get back to the soundbite. You notice you can get back to it by clicking. That's nice. That's great. There was a time when you couldn't do that, but it would be nice to be able to get back to it with a key command. Okay, last thing. I would like to see window operations standardized. And I think what I'm saying is I'd like to see everything be able to be gotten out of with a cancel. So in other words, I'm looking at, let's say, change duration, right? Well, it's just apply is the only thing that's there. And you know, the good news is that nothing's selected, and so it doesn't let you apply anything. That's good. And escape, it will not get you out of that. You have to Command W. And that's a little dangerous, because if you Command W again, you'll close the whole project. Check it out. Now, it stops you and asks you if you want to save, which is good, so I'm going to cancel that. I think that basically everything in the region menu and edit menus should be able to be canceled with the escape key so that this window disappears. That's the first thing. The next thing is I think that there's certain things that it lets you do. For instance, I'll go here and I'll pick something that has no audio. Split. There's no feedback. Nothing happened. There's nothing to split, nothing to do. I'll pick heel separation. Nothing to do. I went here into audio and I picked spectral effects. I only have this one selection of audio here in this one track. I'll say OK. No feedback. It should say there's nothing to spectral effect. I'll do this. And let's go here, audio, replace soundbite. Well, first off, that should not be choosable. Nothing. Doesn't say anything. If I go here, replace soundbite, gives me a menu. And then I would go find the soundbite to replace this soundbite with. But if I come here and do that, replace soundbite, a menu should pop up and say, sorry, you don't have anything selected. So if I do this and I come here and go to apply plugin, it gives me plugins. Select it, select, okay. There's no preview and no apply. That's great. But shouldn't it say, sorry, you don't have any audio selected somewhere here? That kind of stuff would go a long way to helping beginners in particular understand how to use the software. Thank you very much. You could like and subscribe if you want to, but even more important would be to get a little dialogue going, either in the comments, the community tab. So then we could go to Motu and let them know some of the things that we'd like to see coming up in DP. Check out this other video.